Good morning. Today is Friday, January 14th. This is To My Liberal Friends, and I'm your host, John Haddo. I want to talk a little bit about today what's going on with the Biden administration. There are a lot of parallels if you go back to 1994, which I see coming. In 1992, Queen Elizabeth, going through a tumultuous year, used a term called annus horribilis, which is Latin for a terrible year or horrible year. And that's exactly what Joe Biden has gone through. He got dealt several body blows this week. First, the Supreme Court rejected his vaccine mandate for employers with 100 employees or more. And then came the second woe. Senator Kyrsten Sinema announced unequivocally that she would not vote to change the rule on filibustering in the Senate. That leaves her and Joe Manchin aligned with Republicans, so 52 senators opposing. What that means is the Biden legislative agenda is dead. And that puts Biden in a tough spot. And I go back to 1994 because this is where he ought to get the parallels. Bill Clinton was the president. He had come into the presidency viewed as a moderate, but he surrounded himself with a lot of liberal staff and gave his wife, Hillary, who was far more liberal than he was, a large portfolio in his legislative agenda. So in 1994, in the Senate, the Republicans successfully defended all of their seats and won 8 from the Democrats. That gave them control of the Senate, which Democrats had had prior to that. And then you couple that with 2 senators switching over to the Republican Party, Ben Nighthorse Campbell and Richard Shelby, giving the Republicans a solid majority of 54 to 46 in the Senate. In the House, the Republicans won the national popular vote for the House by a margin of almost 7 points and picked up 54 seats. Joe Biden should see what's coming in the midterms and try to make a correction now, but I'm not sure he can. I'm actually not sure that he's actually in charge in the White House anymore. He gave his speech this week down in Georgia on the Voting Rights Act that he would like to see passed in the Senate. However, he went off script and started telling anecdotal stories, one of which where he tried to identify with the people listening to his speech by saying that I too had been arrested. Glenn Kessler from the Washington Post was forced to fact check this story once again because he'd heard it before from Biden, and the Washington Post gave him 4 Pinocchios. There is no evidence that Biden had been arrested. I compare this to his story of riding the train up to Delaware with the conductor Angelo and using times and dates that didn't match, and again had to get 4 Pinocchios from the Washington Post as a story that's not quite true. Now, Biden is famous for these kind of stories, and I think as he gets older, he seems to go back to things that he said in the past because he remembers those things. And quite honestly, one of the first signs of onset dementia, which I happen to believe Joe Biden has, is you remember things you've said in the past, but you can't remember things nearer to the future. It's tougher for that. They say that he spends a lot of time on briefings trying to get up to speed, and that's why he's late for almost every meeting. But if you're suffering from that memory problem, no amount of briefings are going to correct it. And so now Biden is faced with a difficult situation. Ron Klain, his chief of staff, is a devout liberal. He also has Steve Ricchetti in his office, a senior counselor, and I've known Steve for many years, and he is a more moderate Democrat. When the bipartisan infrastructure bill passed in the Senate, I saw Steve Ricchetti's hands all over those negotiations. And in talking to friends of mine, they admit he was the point guy for the White House on getting that bill over the finish line. But Biden now has to figure out, can he pivot and make a change? I don't think he can, simply because the progressives in his party are unwilling to allow him to make that change. They want him to go full bore, continue to push his Build Back Better bill, continue to push his voting rights bill, continue to push everything that these progressives want in order to try to change America to what they want it to look like. Now, the problem we have is progressives are elected in mostly urban districts where they pile up huge majorities. Nancy Pelosi, in a forum in England, described this very succinctly. She said, in some of these districts, like mine, a Democrat could run and win as a glass of water. But once you move out of these urban areas into suburbia and then rural, it becomes increasingly less liberal. And in fact, by the time you get to rural, it's very conservative. And this is what the progressives don't seem to understand. And what Biden should understand is he needs to become the moderate he campaigned on. He needs to become the uniter he campaigned on, and he's done anything but. He needs to step back, maybe reshuffle his staff in the White House, get rid of some people, bring in people that are more like Joe Biden said he was going to be, and start learning to work with Republicans. Kyrsten Sinema is exactly right when she says Rule 22 in the Senate, the filibuster rule, exists to allow negotiation. And yesterday on Facebook I posted Tom Cotton's speech from Wednesday on the Senate floor, where he went into a long and very avid defense of the filibuster rule. And at the end, he stepped up and he said, but these are not my words. All of these words were from Chuck Schumer, the senior senator from New York. And that's what should tell them the signal that the party is over for the progressives. They need to come back to the middle where most of Americans are. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thank you.